Share with you, you know, the weather is cold and people are, it's a busy time of the year, so forgive the board for not being 100% in attendance, but I guarantee you they have valid reason for not being here. Otherwise, they would hear from me and they're right. And Natasha, is that right? Okay. All right, so thank you guys for being here for us. We're going to go ahead and start with the first item on the agenda, the second item. Ms. Montgomery is going to go ahead with the update on the priority. As a matter of fact, because the priority campuses is such a great importance, the board called for accountability meeting back in September, and every member was committed to that. And because other commitments came up where those board members could not be here, I have asked the deputy superintendents and area superintendents to please let us delay that one to one of the upcoming meetings, which should happen within the next 45 days. By then, we know that we should receive the, all of the data and material. So forgive me, area soups. I know that you guys have been working very hard on this. I already saw the evidence, but we didn't want it to go on chairs. We wanted it to go to the people who really want to be here. Okay? So thank you so very much. So with that, we're going to move on to item number 3 on the agenda. We're going to listen or hear about the special education update.
Exactly. So at this time, we're going to have our Director of Special Ed, Ms. Nicole Roberts. She's going to come up and she's going to visit with the board and share updates with the board. It's been a while since we've had a special ed update. This is probably your very first as our new Director of Special Ed. So she's really just going to give the state of special education at Alief ISD, talk about their department's goals and updates, and then some next steps. So, Ms. Roberts.
All right, good evening, Board of Trustees. Oh, I have to turn this
all those people are running, on the edge to run and help.
I think I got it. I can't see over, that's okay. So good evening, Board of Trustees. Thank you for letting me present tonight on special education and updates in our department. So today we're going to talk about the state of special education, as Ms. Montgomery said, our department goals, kind of some updates and big rocks of our challenges of what we're facing, and next steps and where we're going from here. Over the summer, the TEA strategic plan came down, and that was a result of the Houston Chronicle Denied series that came out last spring. I don't know if any of you guys read that series about students in special education or in general education being denied special ed services. And from that came a visit from the Office of Special Education. The federal government came to visit the state of Texas. And from there, one of the findings was that TEA put an 8.5% cap on special education students in the state of Texas. And they found that the state was wrong in making that cap. It was arbitrary. There was no real rhyme or reason when you look at national averages for special education. So from there came the strategic plan. TEA rolled this out over the summer, and from the strategic plan, it's kind of driven our department goals. The number one just charge of school districts is child find. Basically what the federal government said is that Texas, you have a child find issue. We're required to locate and identify students with disabilities in our school district and provide appropriate evaluations. Second, then if they're eligible, provide a free appropriate public education, or what we call FAPE. And then also TEA revamped their supervision and monitoring department. And so that has gone through lots of changes over the year. And so we are just now seeing the effects of the new supervision and monitoring department at TEA. What we've done in Alief is we have identified 4 main groups of students that may have been denied special education services in the past. The first one was special education denials, to where a parent may have requested an evaluation for special education, but for whatever reason, the school district said, no, you need to do X, Y, and Z first prior to a referral. Second, we look at students identified through the 504 dyslexia program, maybe students in 504, and then fourth, tier 3 students receiving interventions. So rather than students sitting in intervention for extended period of time, if we suspect a disability, we are required to then do a referral. So those were the 4 groups that we looked at and we focused on in our strategic plan, our child find activity. We rolled this out to principals back in September. And here are kind of the steps that we went through as part of our child find. First, we identified the students. So as a central office team, we gathered all the data for those 4 groups and we provided child find lists to each campus. The campus then reviewed the data. They had guiding questions to help the campus determine if there's a suspected disability or not. From there, they analyzed the data, made appropriate referrals, and then we evaluated to either find the children eligible or not eligible. Once a child is found eligible under the new guidelines, we also have to consider compensatory. So do we have a history of knowing the student potentially had a disability and we did not refer? And if the answer is yes, then as a district, we're required to provide compensatory services for that student. So this was all rolled out to principals back in the early fall. We have checked in with them, and at the last principals meeting, I think 2 months ago, we gave an update in December as well on where they were with this activity. And most campuses are about 80% complete with the activity. And what we told them was, this is not, you have to be done in a week. This is over time, we need to be looking at students and their progress. Based upon the strategic plan and where we are, we've kind of identified some big rocks and some areas of concern. One is the number of referrals. So when we're looking at campuses and we're giving them additional up to 100 kids to look at, and those referrals are coming in with the same number of evaluators and staff, there's a concern there. So not only the number of referrals, but the evaluators to then do the evaluations, and then third, teachers to provide the services.
once they're found eligible. And we'll look at some of the data here in a minute regarding our child find activity. So based upon all of that information, we've established kind of 4 department goals this year. 1, improve our child find efforts, which you'll see in a minute, which we really have hit hard this school year. Improve instructional strategies, least restrictive environment, and improve specialized services. So we're going to go through each one of these. So first, child find. Just to give you some information, back in 15-16, we had a total of 672 initial full individual evaluations requested. Then we move on to 16-17, 541. 17-18, 553. Last school year, or this school year, we are, as of February 14th, 751 evaluations. We're on target for between 1,000 and 1,200 evaluations, which is more than double what we did last school year. So in Alief, we've really taken into consideration the information from OSEP as well as TEA, and we are on track to find students with potential disabilities. And what does that mean? We have added over 315 students as of mid-February into special education. In Alief, at the beginning of the school year, we were 7.33% identified special education, and as of February, we were 8.12. So even now, with these efforts, we're still below that 8.5% cap, which TEA had initially put on LEAs. Okay, so our next goal is improving instructional strategies. One of the things that we're really working on, and this goes right along with the equity talk that we had about a month ago, when we were talking about, I know I got pointed up to a few times regarding students in special education and providing equitable services. It doesn't mean equal. It's what that student needs. And that's one thing we're really driving and hitting home this year is to do the same thing the general ed teacher's doing, or to do the same thing for every student is not providing specially designed instruction. So what does the student require? And that's one of the things we're really focusing on, providing that, we call it SDI, or specially designed instruction, through high quality inclusive support. So we are an inclusive district, but what are we doing to provide those services for the students to make the necessary gains? That's our focus. Increasing content knowledge of our in-class support teachers. So if they are in the classrooms providing support, they need to know the content, but also then on top of that, the SDI, or the specially designed instruction. And then obviously we're improving that relationship, because when you are in an in-class support classroom and 2 teachers need to be working together, it's a partnership. So truly encouraging partnerships rather than just it's another body in the classroom. So how can we improve those instruction? Dyslexia is another big target for Texas, and there's been a couple of OSEP letters that have come out in the last couple weeks regarding dyslexia services. So in Texas, we service students identified dyslexic either under a 504 or special education. And so there's a lot of back and forth right now in Alief. We are continuing to do evaluations in both Section 504 and special education. But once a student's identified, what systematic reading programs are we providing for students in special education that are identified as dyslexia? So that's another focus for us. So really working on that research-based instruction. Next, we have our IEPs, so improving the quality of our individual plans. So once we have identified a student as special education, we're required to create a plan with goals and objectives. So being able to identify what a student's critical area of need is, and then how are we going to teach that student. And then last within our instructional settings is our specialized support classrooms. So we do have students that are in more restrictive environments and self-contained classrooms, but we expect equitable instruction even within those classrooms. So what are we doing to maintain high level of instructional practices within our specialized support classrooms? Okay, so next we're going to talk about least restrictive environment. One of the things we've worked on this year is modifying our procedures for placing students in more restrictive environments in self-contained classrooms. So there are students that require those services, but we want to make sure that we have tried other services prior to going there, and there's always exceptions, but we want to make sure we have a systematic approach to that. Our least restrictive environment on our PBMAS data is an area of concern, and so we want to see where we can make improvements in that. So that's one thing that we're focusing on through our PBMAS corrective action plan as well. Another area that we've hit to address LRE is restructuring our special education department to improve student outcomes. So we're very compliance-based, and compliance is very important in special education, but instructional outcomes are equally as important. And that's kind of that consistent message that we want to do through the restructure. And then also early intervention and inclusive settings for students transitioning out of our preschool program for children with disabilities, or PPCD. We want to make sure that those students are given the opportunity in inclusive settings prior to just going straight into a self-contained classroom. So that's kind of where we're focusing our LRE efforts for the upcoming school year. And we've already started a lot of these action items this school year, and we're seeing some good results. One of the other things we want to update on is the TEA Autism Grant. The Special Education Department was awarded a $1 million grant to service students with autism. We wrote the grant last school year for innovative practices for students at ages 3 to 5 with autism. Next school year, the program will be located at Mahaney Elementary. It is more like a school within a school. It will be separate from the regular elementary school. There we will have a program facilitator, our BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, and 4 autism coaches to work with. We've identified up to 40 students to go into the program. So those are current Alief students that are in our PPCD program that will benefit from a very structured, we're going to work on discrete trials where we're training students with compliance, ready to learn skills, and the hope is to improve outcomes for students transitioning then into kindergarten and into traditional elementary schools. So we are in the planning stages of that. We've hired our 4 coaches and our BCBA. We've started with materials. We've started looking at renovations that are needed at Mahaney for observation rooms. There will be lots of community involvement with the program as far as parent training, in-home training for students and parents, and all of that is incorporated within the grant. Okay, so based on kind of the priorities we've talked about today, kind of our big rocks and where we are in our challenges that we're facing in our department right now is staff. We have added staff for the first time during the school year to our special education teachers, and it's really on the campuses. They are feeling the effects of our Child Find activity, which is great. We want them to. We want them to be identifying students appropriately, but we are seeing the need for additional staff and evaluators, as well as that improved instruction. So all of this is dominoing, and we are right there ready to assist, jump in, help teachers, help with scheduling, all of this. As you add students during the school year, it becomes a challenge for campuses, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to identify students appropriately. And then obviously our specialized support, we're improving those as we go through. So that's where we are as the state of special education and kind of our next steps, our goals, our department goals, and where we're moving forward in the future. So are there any questions?
I have one. I saw that you reported that we're still below that artificial cap that the DEA set at 8.5%. How comfortable are you that we're finding all these kids? Do we still have more kids to find?
Yeah, I think we do still have more kids, and we still are continuing. We have probably 400 to 500 open evaluations right now that we haven't even evaluated yet. So they're still continuing to come in. When you think of, we haven't even gone up a percentage point, and we've added over 300 students. So we're getting there. I think we're on the right track. It's going to take time. And there's still mandates for RTI and response to intervention. We want to do interventions prior to identifying a student with special education, But if we suspect a disability, we have a child find obligation to make the referral.
Hi, so I have a couple of questions. I
Sure.
am not an educator, so please bear with me.
Yes, we like to talk
Explain
and-
what PBMAS stands for.
Sure, that's our performance-based monitoring system,
Okay.
analysis system. That's the state, they stage us in its CTE, special education, ESL, STAR scores. There's different indicators within our PBMAS data, and that's where as a district we are staged based on our scores.
Okay. And then, so in the campus child find activity, there's a number 4, it says tier 3. So what's tier 3? What makes a child be tier
So when we look at a student's progress in general education and the need for intervention, so if a student's not progressing at the expected rate as other students within the classroom, the campus would then put them through interventions. And there's different levels of intervention. That's through general education. And so our tier 3 students are the students that are getting them the most intervention, the most intense intervention. Usually it's daily for a set amount of time, potentially from a specialist or a classroom teacher.
They're typically on your radar as, you know what, this is a child that is in serious need of help, and so we've got to take a really close look at this child as they possibly might be a child that needs to be referred. And then another question I had was, so for the grant for the kids that are at Mahine, are they going to be transported?
Yes.
Parents transporting them, Alief paying for the transportation? How is that going?
The transportation costs were written into the grant, so that will come out of the funds provided by the state. But yes, transportation will be provided. Of course, if parents prefer to transport their students, they're welcome to as well.
Awesome. And so will they be there all day long?
It's a full-day program.
Full day program for 40 students.
Mhm.
So will they be back like almost in their own wing, kind of? Is that what?
There's an area where we've identified, it's kind of like a pod with several different classrooms and office space, and we'll have 3 classrooms, and then we'll have what they call a DTT room, is a discrete trial training room, where students are working on individual skills one-on-one with a clinician or a teacher or an aide, and then the coaches will be supervising those the DTT rooms as well as the classrooms.
Okay, so that's for 2019, 2020. So is the grant only for 1 year or?
It's a 2-year grant, so we've already gotten the funds for this school year, but due to how late TA notified us of the grant, we asked for a preparation year. So we're hoping it continues, but we don't know that. So right now we're working on the continuation. It's a non-competitive grant, so only school districts that receive the first grant are eligible to apply for the continuation.
Well,
for
thank
next
you for
school
your
year.
great presentation.
No,
And I do want to clarify, when Ms. Roberts mentioned that it was kind of a school within a school, it really is a program.
Program within a school.
It's not the model that we may be thinking of when we're thinking of the Life Sciences Innovative Academy or the International Academy. This really is an AU program within a school.
Right.
We're treating it as it's going to have its own staff there to ensure
Correct.
the success of that program. So we're very excited because we do have a growing number of AU students, and we do think so it's going to make a huge difference.
So are we anticipating more students, or is this grant supporting the current AU students grant?
Well, both. So what we've done is we have gone out into our PPCD programs, and we have another early childhood program for students with autism now. We've gone out there and identified students that would be appropriate for the program, and we are going to be notifying those parents if they would like to apply. It's an optional program. It doesn't take the place of what we're offering for special education. It just supplements it. So it's instead of, and the parents can opt in or opt out. And if they opt out, then of course we will continue to provide our traditional program. Now, students ages 3 to 5 come into the district all year long. So there might be students that are identified that are appropriate. If we have room, then we'll recommend them into the program.
For those students who are coming in, because typically that's a parent who knows their child is going to be entering in school age, and they know that they're talking to those resources.
Mm-hmm.
So is this available for those parents as well, or?
Once they're identified, yes. So once They are referred to either the school district lots of times by clinics or pediatricians. We also have early childhood agencies, ECI, that we work with, and so they would come through there. Now, we are capping it at 40 students for this school year just based on our space. But, you know, hopefully the potential for it to grow with our current staff is there. It's just, we're just gonna have to see how this year goes and how the data trends.
So the grant pretty much covers what facility? Is staffing included in that?
Yes.
Grant? Staffing is included?
Yeah, so the 4 coaches and not all staff, so the 4 coaches and the BCBA were funded through the grant.
What is a BCBA?
The Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
Okay.
And so, do you want to explain a little bit more about the need for BCBAs and kind of, you know, the thought behind that?
Yeah, so it's definitely a hot topic within special education, BCBAs, and what that is it's typically works with students, BCBAs typically work with students with autism, but it's very behavioral based, going down to the why, getting down to the why the student's acting the way he or she may be acting, and really collecting data, but then analyzing the data and making change based upon that. A lot of BCBAs don't have an educational background. We are very lucky that we hired one who was a special education teacher, a teacher of students with autism, so that way she's got both the educational background and the behavioral background.
I was looking, let me see my notes here.
Sure.
The child fund increase.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty interesting that we're finding them now.
We gave them a little push and gave them a place to start, which was helpful.
Right. And I agree with Ms. Butler. I like the way that the presentation was laid out. It was very thorough and easy to follow. But what I was thinking about was how much more of compliance do you think that we need to become? Because initially when you started out, we know about the story that came out with TEA. And I'm always saying, we are not a district that just checks boxes.
Correct.
There are some things, other things that we know that are coming down the pipe that probably need to be addressed. So that when I ask the question, how much more in compliance?
We've got some work to do. As far as overall special education compliance in the eyes of TEA, we are a very compliant district. I mean, we do our annual arts, we do our evaluations. In that sense, we're able to check the boxes, but like you, I really want to get down to the meat of it and be doing quality work, and that's where the focus is on with that IEP development and really working with teachers on identifying needs of students. We have some wonderful special education teachers and just giving them the tools to then help the students succeed.
What changes, I kind of heard that there are some changes that will be coming up concerning the dyslexia. I know at one point the state was saying that you need to identify them as early as kindergarten or something like that, which was
Right.
kind of outrageous because the students are just getting there.
Some of that's
the
developmental.
screening process doesn't happen, so.
Right. So really, the state, you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching a lot of the legal stuff coming out and the guidance documents. So the new dyslexia handbook has been finalized, and I'm working with the instruction department to make sure we're compliant in that area, but then also providing quality instruction, whether it's through 504 or dyslexia. The state of Texas and the executive director of special services at TEA made it very clear that TA is not saying that all evaluations need to go through special education, but there's a lot of talk of that as well. TA's response to the federal government was that in Texas, we identify students under 504 for dyslexia. In most states, that's under special education 100%. So that would increase their numbers tremendously. Unfortunately, it would not increase our numbers that much because we still have that child find activity to complete.
No other questions? Thank you so very much. I'm pretty sure when they do arise, you know, we'll be calling on you, ma'am. Thank you
Yeah,
so
of
much
course.
for
Thank
being a
you.
part of our district and presenting the state of special education.
Yes.
Well, and I do want to just say thank you so much. And Ms. Roberts, you know, being a new addition here over the last year, I think she's doing a phenomenal job. She's come in, she's having conversations and has done lots of listening and touring and working together with people, not only campuses, but other folks in central office, working very closely with Media South, who oversees our 504 dyslexia process. So we do appreciate the work that she's doing along with her assistant director, Deanne Baker. So we really appreciate the work there. Thank you.
We'll be putting a gold star next to your name, Ms. Roberts, if you did say something. And I'm going to tell you why, honestly, equity, because you heard that conversation that we had here that night, and you were part of that. And you talked about how, it is demonstrated as well in special ed. So we're looking forward to more.
And that was one thing that I did. Actually, I was taking notes on my phone, and I went back to, we had our coordinator meeting the next day, and we had a bunch of that. We talked about a lot of what we heard the night before, so it was really timely, and I appreciate being able to sit in on that.
All right. Thank you so much.
President, we had an RFI for board request for information about board council meeting last night.
So let me make a correction. I wanted to, when Ms. Rowe asked me, is selection committee, that's what it's a selection. It's a selection committee. And the selection is selecting a board council. So you're going to help, you're going to drive and help to select board council. So it's a selection committee, and it is ad hoc, so we don't always have it. Okay.
And the members of that committee are Natasha Butler, Darlene Rowe is the chairman of that committee, and I'm also on that committee. And we discussed criteria last night that we wanted included in the RFI, and that was sent out today, and it's due back March 18th, so between March 18th and March 25th. The dates are tentative because we don't know how long it's going to take to go. We will review the applications and score them, interview 3 finalists, and then make a recommendation to the whole board about council for board. We've discussed how much each of the criteria should count in the evaluation. So that's it for the selection committee, ad hoc committee.
Let me add some more to that because the actual RFI came through like this. And originally when the RFI came out, it did not meet the standard that I requested because we did come out and say our RFI and it was an RFQ. So in case you guys were wondering.
Is it an RFQ that went out or an RFI?
It was an RFI. There was a difference between the two, and I sent it back so the procurement could work it because the whole point is just it's asking questions, having those firms to deliver certain information. So you guys should have a copy of that sent to you in the email. All board members should be privileged to see that document, but what was sent before did not align up even with the, it looked like a competitive bid, and I did not want that because this is not what this process is for. There is a code in there, I can't quote it right now, but boards, school boards have the right to go out and select their own attorneys, and they select them not like any other vendors in the district because I think it's certain architects, attorneys, they're not required to do a competitive bid. So that's why it's important for the committee to be able to, see what they were going to do. Now, there are some items inside of the RFI that's the standard information that we're asking all those firms to deliver to the committee, so the committee will get that from the procurement office. And the reason why it went out this day, because next week people are going to be on spring break. No one's going to be here working. So I also request that RFI go through the ironware, which is a product. If you guys do RFQs and things like that, all the firms have to do is submit all the information and it gets transferred to the procurement process. They can print that out and have all of that available for the committee to review. So the expectation is that the committee will obtain it, make a decision on your top. Each one of you will look at the top groups based upon your criteria, because you guys came up with a matrix, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a matrix, and think that the board probably want to get a copy of that matrix as well, so that they can, chime in on that. Okay. So, you guys are good for the development, but I always want to be mindful, I don't want to leave any member out. Okay, so, with the matrix, excuse me, you gotta go through the matrix and remember all of this is, subject to, public information requests.
Okay, and you want me to send it to Mr. Chambers so we can send this out in ordinance?
Which one?
The one with the criteria for the RFI?
Yes, because board knows go out on Thursday, so yes. Send the criteria out, and, we'll have, any board member suggesting other changes or anything like that, they send them back to the normal process, so that they can be reworked, so the committee will have that information next time you guys meet. And after that, then, you guys will, I think you have a schedule, but I'll make sure you have a schedule. I do have the timeline. I'm just I had to hold off on it until I knew that the RFI was released. Okay? So I'll get you guys a timeline, but you know that you guys are going to be meeting just about every week, right? I'm telling you, I'll be a board president, keep y'all working. So you'll be going through that and be prepared to do some interviews, and I'm saying that because it's going to require the assistance of our executive assistants and board secretary. Okay? So that's all I have on that for now. So thank you for allowing me to talk about the RFI. Okay.
And then just we met with the Legislative Policy Committee, specifically to hear from the teacher group representatives. And they gave us feedback, and it's on policy TFFB regarding changing notification from 45 days to 10 days for non-renewal. And we have representatives from each of the three largest teacher groups in the district. And so we'll meet again to review their comments before making a recommendation to the board.
All right, anything else?
That was it. And then the evaluation committee met tonight, and we discussed a new evaluation protocol, and I'm going to, and because there aren't very many people here, I'm going to just not go over the document and give you time, Natasha, and you can call me and ask any questions, but the purpose of this process is to create processes that will give us fair evaluation practices, provide guidance to current and future board members on the processes, and create accountability for board members so that they have a calendar and tools to manage evaluation tasks. And while this process has been in place for many years, it hasn't been formalized in an operating procedures manual. So we're trying to be more formal about it, depending on feedback from the other board members. And we looked at the whole set of documents tonight and made some adjustments on it, but we want feedback from all the other board members as well. So I'll leave a copy for them to have, and then I'll work on getting it on Google Docs so that people can make additions or changes.
Yeah, so and once you do that, I request to have them, but I want to go ahead and compile them and then send them over so that Jessica and Conley can have a copy of it, because right now those are your documents. We want them to become the district's documents.
And I kind of kept them separate so that we didn't get multiple variations of the same document out and people being confused because this document says one thing.
Yeah, but now once you get to a formal process, because we know how to pull them all together.
Yeah.
I mean, Jessica deals with 500 to 1,000 sheets, at least once a month. Am I right, Jessica? You got this, right? Okay. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, and basically that's it. The individual response form is in a different format than we did last year. And it's 12 pages long, but it's got it's put in place a lot of the stuff that was in a separate document. So for clarity's sake, putting it all in one place so people aren't having to flip through pages of fun stuff. And Ann and I had a good discussion about it.
Yes, we did.
This year, talked to the superintendent, he's glad to go ahead with the trial run of using this instrument, depending on the will of the board. And so the document you have is preloaded with the 2018-19 evaluation information. But it's not an approved instrument yet. I just put it in there so y'all can see what it would look like. And any changes, questions, concerns, I'm happy to talk about it. Anne's happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just so that we don't get to the same spot.
What I'm gonna ask, because I changed those committees up, but you and I will, what I'm gonna ask you to do as you're going through that document, because you were sharing it and you have notes and things from that, make lots of notes for us. Okay, because I think one of the things that we suggested, remember when we talked about the evaluation meetings, we talked about doing it in October.
Quarterly.
Right, those quarterly meetings starting in October, and I know you have the notes on what we did on that. So that's gonna, I would ask you to do, because I can't find all of those notes that we had. I didn't get the column in a binder at that time. So if you could do that and, you know, get that back to us through the board notes, so that you can say that.
Kind of attach it.
That would work.
And the survey results, I think you gave them out to us, but I cannot find a copy of the survey results, so if you can include that would be helpful.
Ms. Butler, you have anything else to add? I heard that you participated well in the meeting. You guys came up with great criteria on yesterday.
I think for us having those different committees, I think those would work. And I think that these kind of committees will actually do some great work over a period of time that we're developing the process of best practice. For selecting or informing or creating new procedure going forward. So I think just having all the different kinds of committees actually helps me as one specifically. Makes me feel like
At the same time, I always say, I knew that we didn't always have committees here in Alief, and someone said, I don't want to work as hard as some other school boards where you have meetings all the time. But the one thing that I can say that I appreciate about the meetings that are being held here, they are meaningful. They are meaningful and they're direct, and we have an agenda and we stick to it. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work that's coming out of it. And I'm going to say I'll ask forgiveness now for everything that you guys have to do on behalf of the Board of Council, but if you didn't think that was important, I'm pretty sure you would not have committed to doing it. So I appreciate that. So I will not belabor the time because there's nothing else. There's no executive session. There's nothing else to do but adjourn the meeting. So you guys have a good evening. Where's Dr. Page?